Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So, things look a little different, huh? We, being my fiance and I, decided that it was about time to change up this room. This used to be our guest bedroom, but since we don't have guests all that often, we decided to change it into an office sort of craft space, and also our book room and my filming area. So now you actually get to see my bookshelves in videos, as well as some of my teacups and things. It's still a work in progress, but I like how it looks so far, so yeah. One other thing that I did want to say, I have been posting on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but I'm going to be changing it because I found that that wasn't really working all that well for me. So I think that now I'm going to be posting on Tuesdays and Fridays. So those are the days that you can look for videos from me. And now that all of that is out of the way, let's talk about the books I read in January. Alright, so the first book that I read in January, I think I finished on the first day of January because it is such a quick read and it was so addicting and fun, and that is Jen Campbell's Weird Things Customers Say in Bookshops, or Bookstores, I guess is what the US edition says. And I really enjoyed this. It's all these hilarious things, and by hilarious I mean, yes, they're funny, but some of them sort of break your heart because it's like, somebody really asked that? Oh my gosh. So it definitely made me laugh, and there were so many times that I had to be like, oh man, Justin, come here, I need you to, I have to tell you about this thing from this book because it's so funny, and it's one of those things that I feel like would be a good present to anybody who loves books or bookstores, or even somebody who works in retail, because I'm sure that some of the people I know who work in retail or at Starbucks or things like that would relate to some of the hilarious and just sort of like dumbfounding things that people ask you. So yeah, this was definitely one of my favorite reads of the month. So as I said before, I had jury duty earlier this month for the first, I think, 2 weeks of January, and if you've never had jury duty, it's sort of an exhausting process. It's interesting, I will say that, but there's a lot of hurry up and wait. And so the first day, I think I was there for like 6 hours or something, and in those 6 hours, I did nothing but read, which was great because my job pays me for jury duty, and so basically I got paid my normal salary to sit in a room and read for 6 hours. And the book that I had 2 books with me, and I finished both of those in that time, and one of the first one was Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie. And this book, so I was really excited to read it, and I love this Puff and Chalk edition. I think these are gorgeous, and so I got this for Christmas, and I was really excited to read it because I've never actually read the story of Peter Pan, and I love the Disney movie, and I love all of the different adaptations of like Hook and Pan and all those. I really love the Peter Pan story. This book, I don't think I ever realized how much of a jerk Peter is. Like, I feel like especially in the Disney version of the movie, he is made to be this sort of whimsical character, and yeah, you think he's a little selfish, but he's awful. Like, there's very little I found likable about Peter, and I think he definitely drove home the point that children are selfish, and it just, I don't know, like, it's not that I didn't enjoy this book. I did enjoy it, and I loved the way it was written, and it was fun to read it as opposed to watching a movie adaptation of it. But at the same time, like, Peter was awful, and the Lost Boys were just like blindly following, and Tinkerbell was even more awful than she is in the movie. But yeah, I don't know. I could go on and on about how much I was shocked at how horrible Peter was, but that's not necessary. So the next book that I read while I was on jury duty was The Tea Rose by Jennifer Donnelly, and I picked this one up because it is a historical fiction novel and it is tea related. So both of those things definitely spoke to me, and it does have a fair amount of tea related stuff in it, but it's not about tea, obviously. It's a historical fiction novel. This is the story of Fiona, who is, I think she's like 17 or 18, something like that, and she is the daughter of a dock worker, and it's about sort of all of these so at first all these horrible things happen to her, and she basically loses everything. And the rest of the book is about her journey to sort of get the things that she wants in life. And it's also a really fantastic revenge story. And I love a good revenge story, especially a historical fiction revenge story. I mean, my favorite book is The Count of Monte Cristo, so what can I say? But anyways, so this was really interesting. I thought the characters were fantastically developed. I was not crazy about the Jack the Ripper part that was weaved in there. I thought that it probably could have been left out, and I'm never really a fan of like brutal murder being described in things. I don't really like that aspect of the book, but it did sort of weave into the plot and add to it a little bit, though they could have done without it. But anyways, it's a really good book. I enjoyed it. There are 2 more in the Tea Rose series, and I plan to read both of them this year, so I will probably be doing a review of this series later on in the year, so I will stop talking about this book now and move on. The next book that I read was one that was sent to me by Goodreads First Reads. I won it in one of their giveaways, and it is an advanced reader copy, and that is Kazuo Ishigiru's The Buried Giant. I loved this book, and I loved it in a completely different way than I feel like I loved most of the books I read this month, because it was complex, and it was one of those books that you really had to have quiet time to read or you'd get lost. It's a complicated story, and it's also a story that is, I don't know, I really don't know what else to say about this book in a succinct manner. And I'm going to have a review of this book. It will probably not be up for some time because the book doesn't actually come out until March, and so I want to post that closer to the release date. But yes, I am going to be reviewing this book later, and I will tell you more in depth my thoughts on that. So I was also reading The Sky is Everywhere by Jandy Nelson at the same time that I was reading The Buried Giant, which I think was sort of a mistake because at first I really wasn't enjoying this book as much as I did in the end because I was reading it while I was reading The Buried Giant, and The Buried Giant is so much more complicated and thought-provoking than this book to me. This is definitely classic YA for me, and it's not that I didn't like it, because I did really like it, and in the end I stayed up until midnight to finish it because I just was so interested. And this is basically a story about a girl who, her sister dies, and it's sort of her journey after her sister dies through grief and through just sort of rebuilding herself and realizing what she wants in life. And it was really interesting, and it was funny, and it was sad, and there were times when I was like, what is she doing? I cannot understand this. And maybe because I wasn't that much of a wild teenager, so I didn't really find her scenarios to be something that I could personally relate to. But I still found it interesting, and it was definitely a really great picture of grief and loss, and something that I definitely would recommend. Alright, and the last book that I read this month, I sped through, and that's pretty typical for these books for me, but it was The Mark of the Midnight Manzanilla by Lauren Willig. All of her book titles in this series are such a mouthful. This is the 11th book in the Pink Carnation series. 12th one comes out in August, and I cannot wait for it. And this one was really good. I feel like with this series, they get better as time goes on, because the Pink Carnation book was good, it wasn't great, and I feel like the book right before this one, or 2 before this one, I can't remember, was one of my favorites, and then this one I thought held up. It was Sally Fitzhugh's story, and it is like her Halloween book, I guess. So Mischief of the Mistletoe was like the Christmas book, and that was actually Sally's brother Turnip's book, but this one is like set in a Halloween-y sort of setting, and it was fun, it was funny, and I thought I knew who the, I guess, I was going to say spy, but this one isn't so much as, this one isn't really along the same lines as all the others where it's like formulaic and it's like love story, spy triangle thing, whatever. this was a little bit different, and I thought that I knew what was happening and who was responsible for the things that were happening, and I was close, but I was not right. And yeah, I don't know, it's interesting, and I think that Lauren Willig does a great job with these books, and I cannot wait for the last one to come out. Alright, so those are the books that I read in January, and I had a pretty good reading month. I'm excited that I read 6 books in January. That's crazy for me. And then on top of that, I enjoyed most of them. I think I might have given one of them 3 stars, but I'm pretty sure they were all 4 or 5-star books for me, which is great because I have not had a month where I read that many, you know, books that I really enjoyed in a while. So yeah, that's definitely a great start to 2015, and I would love to hear what you guys have been reading in January, or what you thought of some of these books if you've read them. Has anybody else read the Tea Rose series? Because I feel like it's fairly popular on Goodreads, but I've never heard anybody talk about it on BookTube, so I'd be interested to know if any of you have read that series. So that is about it, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!